had the authority. I could not simply overlook him, ignore him, and then go and carry out an action. This is what I have been trying to explain. So when you look at the organization chart, there is the chief of staff, but then I explained that there were certain orders, and Boiseau was president at the time. Would the chief of staff be allowed to do certain things? No, during that period, I would perform the duties of chief of staff, and that is why I gave that answer.
Now, Boiseau, you've explained would deal with the political issues and you would deal with the military issues. Is that right?
Oui.
Answer yes.
So during the march of the 16th of December on the RTI, did you make the decisions about the positions of your men?
Answer. I was the one who took the decisions about the positions of the men in depending on the mission that had been given to me, namely to intercept the people, the marchers who were crossing and going through 220. And from a strategy point of view, it would be simpler to intercept them at the Boulevard des Martyrs, because we knew that there were people. There were also people in Kukuri, Adjamé, and we knew that there would be people between various buildings. People would be going in various directions. So from a strategy point of view, it would be better for us to take a position at Boulevard des Martyrs. And we could, and the people in Cocody
was their witness. Because my question was simply this, and you answered it. My question was it you who decided on the positions of your men? And you've given an affirmative answer to that question. So with respect, we don't need to rehash the events, as it were.
The witness, I was just explaining that in Adjamé, the positions were defined in Adjamé, and the positions in Cocody had been defined by the FDS, the Forces of Defense and Security. That was the point I was trying to get at, but then you interrupted me. Now I finished. I finished. So that's the point I was trying to make.
And was it you or Boiseau who decided on how the men would move?
Answer, once again, I've explained in our jargon, in the field, if the theater of operations, it's the mission itself of the command, because you can position a man here, and then, depending on the events, he might head towards another position. The position that I defined was like, well, that was the initial position, because we had a perimeter, a certain area of action, and the position depended on the direction that the marchers were headed in. And so depending on them, we also made adjustments so that we could contain them and intercept them. And so there you have it. That is why I explained when we were talking about orders and coordination earlier, you mentioned that, and I received orders from Boiseau. In the field, for example, when we're at the Boulevard des Martyrs, when the FDS unit came towards us and told us to leave the location, I would have to refer to Boiseau first and say, we've been asked to leave the location, what do we do? Because I reported to Boiseau for that mission.
And according to your evidence, at this time, you are not the Deputy Chief of Staff, but you are the Chief of Staff. So, why, if you are the Chief of Staff, and you are making military and strategic decisions, as you put it, why are you not attending meetings?
Answer, I think I've explained several times. I've explained that, well, I wasn't paying attention. I said, correction, maybe you weren't paying attention. I said first that it was my personal decision first, and given that I took part first in a number of missions, undercover missions, as much as possible, I was avoiding meetings where there might be, well, that kind of meetings with journalists. And we agreed with Boiseau the fact that there was the whole thing about leadership, the leadership crisis within the GPP, and to give more weight before the authorities. Each time we spoke to a certain component of the GPP, automatically they would be there as the one and only contact point. And if I weren't there, didn't matter, because all the same, the implementation of certain decisions, of those decisions, was done through me. So whether I was there or not, that didn't bother me. And I was avoiding, also for personal and family reasons, I was avoiding, because I didn't want people to be making links between me and certain activities. It had to do with members of my family, so I really wanted to try as much as possible to disassociate those two things.
Now, at the beginning of the march, when you leave your premises in order to carry out your mission, do you already have your armbands and your cordelettes when you're leaving your premises, or do these things come to you later during the march, or after you've left your premises?
Answer: before the elements, before the deployment of the elements to the operation, Boiseau went and he left and he came back with the cordelettes and the armbands. Me, myself, personally, I already had my own cordelette. I already had my armband, my cordelette as well. I don't know. Well, that day, whether he went to get the armbands or not that day, you see, we wanted as many men as possible to be identifiable easily from far away, so that they would not be confused or attacked by defense forces. We were working with them, but you see, we were in plain clothes, and so we got the equipment in question and the elements were deployed.
Now, during your evidence, you spoke about a march of the GPP at where you went to the Stade de la Fosse. When you were at the Stade de la Fosse, how many men were you?
Answer: close to 2,000 people. More than 2,000 people, to be specific.
Yes, I'm about to. Yes, your answer. Your answer relates to the GPP.
Answer: I didn't understand the question. You're asking how many there were of us for the march, how many men? I haven't really understood. I think I was the one who didn't understand the question.
Down. How many men of the GPP were at the Stade de la Fosse?
Answer: more than 1,000 people. I didn't count exactly that day, but more than 1,000.
And how many people from other groups?
Answer: I didn't count the number of people, so I really can't give you numbers. Some people came on time, some people came late, and at one point we decided to begin the march. From an organizational point of view, it was a bit of a mess.
Were there people from other groups sympathetic towards the GPP who turned up?
Très différent.
Answer. There were various groups, different groups. You mentioned denominations. Well, the GPP, the first PC, the GCLC, the level 4. There were several groups.
Other than this 1,000 plus or minus GPP, from these other groups, were there large numbers as well?
C'est moi qui comprends.
Answer. I don't really understand what you mean by other groups. I'm not getting it.
Mention certain groups who were there, other than the GPP, haven't you? So those are obviously the groups I'm referring to.
Mais
Answer. Well, I mentioned those groups who were associated, but now you're asking me if there were other groups than the GPP who were associated. I told you the groups that were there. These other groups who weren't part of the ones you're talking about, can you explain exactly what you mean by other groups?
You've spoken about 1,000 GPP, plus or minus. You've mentioned that apart from the GPP, there are other groups which you've named, which are associated with the GPP. So those other groups which you've named, which are associated with the GPP, did they come also in their thousands or less?
je dirais qu'ils étaient moins.
Answer. I would say there were fewer, but still a good number. Because I think that during the questioning by the prosecution, I think he showed a document to me, the leaflet, the information leaflet about the march. And it said GPP March, the march of the GPP and self-defense groups. Self-defense groups, that included all the self-defense groups and of the various self-defense groups from the south. So all those various groups joined together, were associated with one another, and they had the same aspirations, namely the same aim. They wanted to achieve certain results.
Were there, apart from the GPP and the groups associated with the GPP, were there other people who came to the Stade de la Fosse just to observe what's going on?
Ces jours-là,
Answer. That day, all the ones who saw the leaflet, who got the information, and who felt involved or concerned by our demands, who felt that they were, who were supporters or sympathizers of the GPP took part. I've already explained that the GPP itself, we were between 10,000 and 20,000, 18 to 20,000 at the very most. And we were supposed to take part in the census of former combatants, and we were asked to associate, to come together. with the young people from other movements, such as the agoras, the parliaments, the various patriotic groups, because when orders were issued by the Patriotic Galaxy, they would come out as well. These other people would come out too and help out and provide assistance to the government. They were part of the patriots. So the GPP, owing to its definition, it means groupement des patriotes, a groupement of patriots. So we were to come together, including young people, all kinds of young people, young people who had not been in the military before, but became involved in or associated with the GPP. So the demands expressed during the march, these demands were supposed to have a favorable outcome, and people were going to benefit. The list of the GPP in relation to the authority, there was an initiative in 2007, and the names were on the list.
Because we're going into a lot of other details now. We're talking about numbers at the moment. And I asked you about bystanders, because presumably there was some degree of publicity prior to this event. Could people from the outside come into the stadium to see what was going on as well, other than these groups?
C'était possible.
Answer, that was possible. The press came as well. Well, first of all, the place, it's an open or public area. It wasn't in a closed off place or a place where you could shut off access. Before the beginning the march, I put the troops in a column in their ranks, and before we began the march,
that there were 18 to 20,000 of you in the GPP. So why did only 1,000 odd turn up to the stadium?
Il y a d'autres qui sont à...
Answer, there were others inside. Some were in Abidjan. I don't want to give specific reasons, but I must say that in light of what had been promised to us and what was given to us, each person had their own concerns. Some people were trying to move matters forward. Other people were trying really well, they were acting like volunteers in a way, helping the government or the state with security. Other people thought that it was a waste of time. And the government, well, it was always going to be the same thing as it had been for a long time, that we wouldn't get anything that if we had a favorable outcome, well, some people thought it was an opportunity to extend one's hands out to others. And you see, also, though, we had to consider the press, and the objective or the aim was reached.
Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do for today is to show you a video, and it's CIV OTP 0082 0482 at timestamp 000000 to 000015. And it's public. What is that location?
Au stade de la Fosse.
Answer, that's the stadium. Stadium de la Fosse.
And is that the event we're talking about?
Oui.
Answer, yes.
Those are all my questions, probably forever. I know that Mr. Altit will have some questions tomorrow, but we've got through a substantial part of the defence case for Gbagbo.
With this witness, you mean?
Yes.
No, because you were talking about the case. So.
That would be something.
Yeah, well. Maître Altit? No, just to know where we stand for tomorrow.
Mr. Altit, thank you, Your Honour. Listen, at the rate we're going, I think that I will need 2 sessions tomorrow. I certainly won't go beyond 2 sessions, and I'll try to make it shorter than that. That's what I can promise today.
Thank you very much. So I don't think we need extended hours, I would say. Okay. So we will resume tomorrow morning at 9:30 and have normal 3 1.5-hour sessions. And I think tomorrow will be the last day, your last day. And so have a nice rest and see you tomorrow. The hearing is resumed.
All rise, vous vous levez.